2000. But so it was complex adaptive systems. Well, since that, I've been doing this and that related either educational psychology, complex adaptive systems, or AI or data science, from academic research to being a director of education at Satakunta University of Applied Sciences, but mostly I'm startupper, doing stuff in games business, now in serious AI. But if I have to say at one word what I am, I'm scientist.
Okay, startupper and scientist, but mostly a scientist. Still, I want to ask about the startups.
Yeah, that's completely okay, because I have found startupping way more interesting than being just researcher. And there are several factors I want to highlight why startupping and why I want to encourage every independent researcher to think to be a startupper. It's the independent stuff.
I definitely enjoy talking. Like, you ask yourself questions, you answer them. I can just sit down and relax. Okay, you ask the question,
so why?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's just perfect. So yeah, why? Why to do a startup?
I think when you are a researcher, you must have your own ideas. And if you don't have, then it is good and completely okay to be member in one team. But if you have your own interest areas, it's way more easier to think that you are building a startup rather than trying to find funding for your own idea. And especially when you are young. When you are old, like I'm now, it's way more easier to have a public funding when you have done stuff. But as a young researcher, it's quite difficult to get public funding for great ideas that might be true in 10 to 20 years. But in the beginning, if you can think that you do business, maybe in case of science, it's more like sustainable business, but business anyway, with your ideas, and you manage to find customers and someone who is interested, then it's startupping. And you don't always have to try to build a unicorn in 5 years. But if you can fund your big ideas and do it in a sustainable way, that's doable as a startupper. And in some cases, it's easier as a startupper than trying to just find public funding for ideas that nobody else had ever have.
Interesting. I was more thinking that between being a science and being a startup entrepreneur, the problem is how you think or how you perceive the world, in a sense that when you're a scientist, in my perspective, right? When you're a scientist, you're more following the rules and you're following the pattern. And when you're doing some research, you kind of have these stages, do this, put it there, check how it works, measure. And there are actual measurements, like normal ones, like size, strength, whatever. While you're a startup, it's constantly changing, constantly instability, insecurity, stuff like that. What do you say about this?
I think being a scientist means that you really have to make everything questionable. Let's take Galileo Galilei, who get banned from church point of view because he said aloud ideas that was forbidden, like that Earth is not center of everything, or like Earth is not flat. And because that was against the current state of mind and current understanding of the universe, right, He get banned. And that's science, making questionable, finding arguments, and finally, nowadays there are still people who think that Earth is flat and Earth is center of everything, but most of the people don't think that way. So in that sense, I don't find any difference between startupper or being a scientist who has some new, maybe revolutionary ideas that just have to be proven.
Interesting. First of all, I should say that my Finnish is really bad, but I still went through the program of Future Launch. Can you please tell what's your participation in Future Launch is about?
Yeah, in Future Launch, we are talking about the future of skills because of the AI, robotics, automation in general are going to change the landscape a lot, or in fact, how much it changed? That's a question. Anyway, our idea is to discuss the change. Because at some sense there is change, and in some sense there is no change at all. If we once again go back to 14th and 15th century, this time we shouldn't take Galilei, but let's take printing press machine.
We are from different countries, we have different perspective on that. So let's not fight about who was the first printer.
Printing press machine, I think in Western world, we somehow agree that it was invented in 1432 or 36, but Chinese think that they have invented it earlier. Let's not argue on that. But anyway, the printing press machine took a lot of work from monks. They didn't have to copy any more Bibles and religious texts.
Right.
But also it enables to spread revolutionary texts, like, for example, not Earth-centric views. And because of the printing press, there was a not unemployment, but the monks could do different things. The price of the books went down, but what most, it enables to deliver information in a way that in 15 something, the new age started. So it enables a growth for evidence-based thinking, more information available for everyone. And it is part of the change. If at that time we would have argued that, okay, there is that printing press machine. What if someone uses it in a way that they deliver wrong thinking? And then we have to ban printing press machine. What would have happened? And coming back to these days, the skills. If we now say that we should ban all the automation, AI, robotics, because somebody might lose the job.
Yeah.
Well, at some part of the world, someone still starts to use machines. So then those who say that we are not out of this, they are going to lose the jobs. But the positive side is that during the history of mankind, there has always been work. There has always been stuff to do. And I would claim that the amount of the work, amount of the jobs is quite stable, in fact. We just move towards more and more productive work. And when we invent a machine that do the routine type of work, we have always invented more productive work. Like in first industrial revolution, all the simple tasks were machine-made. And there were a lot of unemployment for 10 to 20 years, but there was more and more productive jobs. And eventually the salaries went up, and every worker did have more consuming power. Not necessarily talking about the money, but consuming power. Because the prices went down at some areas, there were more food, more clothes, and still enough money to do more stuff than previously. So in that sense, there is no evidence that we are going to, lose all the jobs to machines, because there has always been jobs. We just have to invent them. So that's maybe the biggest challenge. And not losing the jobs is not the problem. The problem is the equity. Who owns everything? If there is only a couple of companies who own everything, the data, the algorithms, or finally, eventually on the countries, then we are in real trouble. But if we go through this fourth industrial revolution, like open competition, transparency, and remember to keep ethical stuff in, I would say we have nothing to worry. Because when the ownership of technology is distributed, we have a control over the competition, so there is no monopoly for one. But we can really do business. The entrepreneurship is okay. The open competition, then we will figure out the new jobs. There will be a lot of unemployment for next 10 to 20 years, but it is not the end of the world. There will be new jobs. And what they are, we can just guess. And that's what we are going to talk about, what they might be. What skills we should have tomorrow in order to keep us in the competition. But where will it lead in 10 to 20 years? And those are completely different things. So discussing that maybe today we have to educate programming, but is it necessary for 20 years? And what we need in 20 years? Are there going to be jobs like I'm just discussing with people because there are that much loneliness? What are the jobs going to be and where we eventually end up? That's the big discussion. But that's completely different than what we are going to educate next year.
Right, a bit off top. Besides today's Future Lounge, any other big events where we can see you, like soon?
Like this year. Like tomorrow in Scouts event in Suomi Arena, and on Thursday in Teachers Union event in Suomi Arena, and in Friday it was some medical event on Suomi Arena.
Suomi Arena.
So very soon, yeah.
Right. Then I probably should also invite you to get out of Suomi Arena and join us in Tampere in October for Stream Startup Festival.
Okay, we'll do that.
Please do. That would be interesting. We definitely don't have too many people with your kind of background. And can I ask you one very classical question? In your opinion, Harri, what's the key to success for an early stage startup or for a startup in general?
I would say that's a good question and also a question impossible to answer. But I would say that focusing on the first paying customer is the key to success. So until you have your first paying customer, focus on your first paying customer. And then when you have the one, learn from that and focus on the second one.
Now we have a motivation, a call to action from Harri to start a startup. And now we know the secret how to. And also we know that we should constantly learn and check what the education market is about, not to be jobless. And if we are jobless, not to worry too much. I'll keep it telling to myself next time I lose a job. But anyways, unless
you just have to find out that everyone do have skills. Everyone do have something to offer, but you just have to find it. What are your skills? How to make the skills somehow valuable in a way that somebody wants to pay what you can do, produce. Well, I think it's a core of entrepreneurial thinking. So
Fascinating. Thank you very much for this interview. I don't know what about our listeners, but for me it was really thought-provoking. I'll analyze it while doing some small editing afterwards. But anyways, thank you very much for this interview. Hope you enjoyed today's event. And as said, we'll be glad to see you in Tampere this autumn.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be there.
And now I have the people who actually helped me with 90% of organizing the interviews here. So thank you very much, my dear friends from Crazy Town Pori. It's amazing to have you here. Thank you for having time for this interview. Thank you for inviting, for having me, for letting me use your premises as a mobile studio, so to say. Let's start from the very beginning. Can I ask you both to tell a few things about yourself? Like, present yourself to our listeners, please.
Hi, my name is Kati Fager, and I work here in Crazy Town for community manager, here in Pori, I mean. My background is in culture, so I'm a producer, and I've worked with a lot of different events and associations and different city culture organizations and so. And, well, networks and games has been the last thing that I've grabbed on the last few years. And now I'm working for Crazy Town and also for Pori City in a project.
Yes, my name is Petri, and I'm also community manager in here in Crazy Town. And my background is in university. I have working there and I'm in partly. And what I do there, I do ICT things, including artificial intelligence and many kind of open data things and so on, and try to transfer this kind of information to here in what we are doing in here in Crazy Town, because there are all in here in Crazy Town includes many companies which are working in ICT sector, but many other sector which needs ICT skills and yes, that's me, something about me.
I know that Crazy Town Pori is quite young. Is it true? Is it like the youngest of the Crazy Town community, or?
Yeah, we started in beginning of this year, 2019, and we both came aboard January, February. So that's how. And well, we also have like Helsinki We Plus community, but that's like a bit not only Crazy Town, but operated by Crazy Town. So,
is there anything specific about Crazy Town Pori in a sense of what kind of companies you have here? Maybe like difference in terms of their businesses, or they're more international than elsewhere, or something like that?
I think the main topics here are artificial intelligence and robotics. And so far we have 2 or 3 companies who are very deep level focused on artificial intelligence, and let's see what we can get other companies who are more focused on other sectors like robotics. But we have meetings here and many kind of topics here which are focused on robotics and artificial intelligence. So they are our main focus areas here. But we are doing many others too. But
yeah, we have companies who are from very different areas, like from healthcare and from ICT and communications and such.
If you know the number, can you say how many companies are using Crazy Town now within the community?
In Pori there is now 14 companies.
Yeah, around 30 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe more, but yeah.
Yeah, actually now maybe more, true that.
Yeah, quite a community. And how many of those companies are startups, or are they all like traditional businesses?
We have 2 companies that have like last year founded, this year or last year founded, so they are really new. And then maybe, how do you define startup? How do you define that? But I think that the kind of growing companies, there's at least 4, 5, I think. Yeah. And on top of the 2, so I think half is like startups. Yeah.
But still, how do you define a startup? Since you work in the sphere of business and startups are community, you have to have some definition just from your perspective.
I don't know. It's
Well, I listened to your podcast with Timo Lahti from Crazy Town, so maybe I hope I remember what he said. Yeah. Well, a new company well, that's a startup maybe, but also the kind of a growing kind of one that wants to grow. And also some people maybe give the startup definition to a company that is old but is taking on a new branch or new development thing. So yeah, so it's kind of
and maybe how keen they are to do things. I mean, they are very...
Yeah, the attitude.
Attitude, yeah.
So